What's up, y'all? It's Shuffle, and today's video is going to focus on the best trios in Darkest Dungeon. I'm going to list 5, but that does not mean these are the only best trios. There are other ones out there. And before we get started with the video, if you enjoy it, make sure you give it a thumbs up, leave your thoughts down below in the comments, and if you want to check out the other stuff in the description box, like Discord, Twitter, Twitch, and Patreon, that'd be very appreciated. The reason I'm focusing on trios is because a lot of people have trouble with team building in this game, and so this way you can have some kind of huge framework that puts most of the team together for you, and then you can just drop one extra person in there that seems to fit and has some synergy, and this team will likely succeed barring some kind of horrific chain of RNG or some gross misplays. The first trio that we're going to talk about is Plague Doctor, Jester, and Occultist. I've talked about this set of three a lot in my videos over the recent weeks, and this team is really good just overall because it has ways to do damage. It has damage over time, it has like direct damage, it has Finale, which is a big nuke, it has Battle Ballad, which gives everyone speed and crit, which is fantastic. It has healing from Occultist, who can heal from anywhere, then has stuns, it has Battlefield Medicine, it has so much across 3 characters, and it's very flexible, which is why I like it a lot. All you need to complete this team, once you have these 3, is to just slap some kind of frontliner up front that can take advantage of everything presented. The best examples would be Leper, Hellion, and Shieldbreaker. There are others you could use, but I feel that those 3 I just listed are the best ones to cap off this team. And the reason is the 3 in the back, so Plague Doctor, Jester, and Occultist, those 3, like I said, have a lot of control, you have buffs, you have all this stuff going on that whoever your damage dealer is up front has their choice of just doing kind of whatever they need to. So you have 3 different ways to stun on the team between everyone, and then you have your buff from Jester, and then you have your frontliner who can just pick off whatever easy target they need to. Another great part about this team is it has 2 healers. One is consistent, one is inconsistent. That's Occultist. Then you have a stress healer. So if you need to stall at the end of a fight, you have your 2 stunners dropping stuns, or you have one person stunning, what have you. And then you have the other person healing, and then you have Jester just dropping out stress heals all over the place. And this team can recover fairly easily. Another nice part about it is if you run something like Hellion, you have extra stuns, which help a lot. She has Adrenaline Rush if you want to stall at that too. If you run Leper, he has Intimidate. So between Intimidate and Weakening Curse, you can just put someone's damage to literally 0, at least after a couple rank ups in the skills, and that makes the stalling that much easier. It's worth noting that the Leper variant of this team excels quite well in the Courtyard specifically, but you could run it other places. But if you want to run something like Shieldbreaker, I like that the most in the Cove, and then Hellion kind of goes anywhere just because she's a damage monster, and Shieldbreaker is to a lesser extent. We're going to stick with Plague Doctor for our second trio, and the next one is going to be Plague Doctor, Houndmaster, and Flagellant. I do like the idea of running Bounty Hunter over Houndmaster, so that's pretty close in terms of overall effectiveness, but for different reasons. Like, Bounty Hunter has a little more control, he has 2 stuns that he can throw out, he has bigger damage than Houndmaster, but he offers a little bit less in utility compared to Houndmaster. I also forgot to mention that Bounty Hunter does have a bit less reach than Houndmaster, which does kind of suck. I've talked about this in other videos in the past, but Plague Doctor and Flagellant are probably one of the strongest duos in the entire game. I would say it's like a top 3 in terms of pairing, just because they have so much control and speed and healing between them, as well as damage over time and flexibility, which is very nice. Which means that since this pair is so strong together, you can throw 2 other characters in here and it should do fine in most cases, but if you really want to take it a step further, then use someone like Houndmaster. What I like about having Houndmaster in this team is he adds a bit more in terms of variety than Bounty Hunter. Bounty Hunter is just damage and stuns. Both of those things are fantastic, but Houndmaster does just a bit more. For instance, you can put Houndmaster in rank 2, 3, or 4. He can go pretty much anywhere in this party that's not rank 1. He has his own stun in Blackjack. He has a self-heal, which is pretty nice. He has reach into rank 4. He has a cleave, which synergizes with Plague Grenade and Rain of Sorrows. If you want to put him in the back of the party, then you have access to a group stress heal, which is never a bad thing. And then you also have a guard. And although I would say Bounty Hunter is capable of more damage than Houndmaster, our favorite dog person does bring a couple dog treats with him, which do help his damage when you need it. With this much emphasis on bleed damage, obviously the scene can't go to the ruins, but you can still take it to the Cove. The Cove does have bleed resistant enemies, but they're not bleed immune like the skeletons are. A final point of Houndmaster over Bounty Hunter is the fact that Houndmaster has better camp skills than Bounty Hunter. He has access to Nighttime Ambush Preventer, which the other 2 do not have, and then you have more scouting chance from his stuff. Meanwhile, with Plague Doctor, you have stuns, and then you have flexible damage over time, so you could put her in rank 3 for Incision, or put her in rank 4 or 3 and just spam the Blight attacks. Those are both pretty good. And then Flagellant can function as the main healer of this team. Something people keep sleeping on with this character is that Flagellant can be your only healer if he needs to be. All he needs to accomplish this is really one bleed resist trinket, and then you just start throwing out reclaims on everyone who gets hit. Even though this is second in the video, I would say that out of the entire 5 that I'm listing, this is probably my favorite one. The third trio is going to include your starter pair of heroes, so Highwayman and Crusader, aka Dismas and Reynald, and we're going to throw in Occultist with them for good measure. I think my favorite part about this trio is that they're pretty flexible in terms of positioning, so you can have Occultist up front, or you could have Crusader up front, and you have different stuns that you can use. You have different ways to facilitate offense with Occultist, or you can put them in the back, so you can do stuff like Roost Spaghetti or Sacrificial Stab, or you can put Highwayman and Crusader in the back of the party, or in the middle of the party, so you have this Dance Core with Duelist Advance and Holy Lance, which I talked about in the previous video. So there's just a lot going on this team. You have reach, you have good damage, you have stuns, you have heals. It really does cover quite a lot between 3 characters. Something else that's very cool about this trio is that when you have to camp, you have a lot of options. Obviously, you can use Highwayman's very good camp skills to increase his damage, but if you want to go the other route and use Occultist, who has some very interesting camp skills that do things like remove mortality debuffs, or give you extra damage, or have a cheaper nighttime damage preventer at the cost of stressing your team, you have Crusader on the team to offset that. So you can either spend some time in camp with Crusader to get rid of the stress caused by Occultist, or you can do it in battle with Inspiring Cry. Speaking of Inspiring Cry, if you're going to use Occultist as a stun character, when you use Hands from the Abyss, it lowers your torch. So a way that you can offset this without burning through your torches very quickly is to use Inspiring Cry once or twice a battle to offset the torch drain from Hands from the Abyss. It's hard to say 1 or 2 characters just offhand who would fit really well in this team, just because it's so flexible and it really depends on what you're trying to do. You have Highwayman and Crusader who can do really good damage. You have Crusader and Occultist who can stun, who can also heal, and they can do most of this independent of where they are on the field. So at that point, you have to ask yourself, if you're putting the characters in certain spots, what do you need after that? If you want to put Occultist up front so he can stun more often, then you have to find some more damage for the team. In that capacity, Grave Robber fits pretty well, but if you want to put Occultist in the back where he can be more supportive, then you have to have someone up front that can either take some hits or control the front line. If you want to leave Highwayman and Crusader up front, so you have Duelist Advance into Point Blank, and then you have Stun with Crusader, which means Crusader's doing more of a support role, then you probably need some other damage on the team somewhere. Also, do not get it twisted, even though you have Crusader, you do not have to take him to the ruins for him to do good damage. He actually has some really good damage that he can do anywhere as long as he's using Holy Lance. Sticking with Occultist, but number 4 is going to be Arbalest, Occultist, and Man-at-Arms. Something I forgot to mention in the previous team when I was talking about Occultist and Crusader is that since Occultist is pretty inconsistent with his healing, especially at lower levels, being able to have some other supplemental healer with him does help balance him out. That means that Occultist can focus on stunning or doing whatever else he's supposed to be doing on the team. Then you have Crusader, or in this case Arbalest, who can drop heals on people that need it. Just like last time, Occultist provides his trademark flexibility for the team, but then you have someone like Arbalest who's there to deal damage to the backliners and then heal people at the end of the fight. Man-at-Arms is pretty interesting in this team, so if you haven't noticed by now, there is some kind of mark synergy with Occultist and Arbalest, but Man-at-Arms specifically does add quite a bit of value to this trio. That value takes the form with Man-at-Arms in the fact that he can stun things with Rampart, he can guard people that get hurts, and then he can use one of the moves that I slept on pretty hard at the start of my DD career, and that is Bellow. One of the inherent issues with most Mark teams that Red Hook tries to kind of get you to, like they try and guide you to them, is that they're generally pretty slow. And Mark is a playstyle that you do want to be able to control a little bit of the fight and then get set up so you can do all your damage and not be interrupted doing it. So one option is to run Jester, but the other is to run Man-at-Arms. I will admit that Man-at-Arms is a bit tougher to play than most characters just because he has a Swiss Army knife type of playstyle, meaning he has a tool for pretty much any situation that you can put him in. But as long as you're comfortable taking the time to explore it and understand it, then you will find a lot of things for Man-at-Arms to do, and he will feel like he's contributing. Another reason I greatly appreciate Man-at-Arms with characters like Occultist or Arbalest, it's not even so much the mark synergy that they provide, it's the fact that Guard is a mechanic that gets better when you have really good single target healers. Meaning that even though you can guard people who are low, it's sometimes okay to guard people who are at full HP just because you want to funnel all of your damage into Man-at-Arms and then heal one person. This means that the healing buff from Arbalest Bandage gets much better, and then Occultist, even if he high rolls on a heal, since Man-at-Arms has so much HP, he's not likely to overheal by that much. The only thing missing from these three is some form of really strong and consistent damage that can hit rank 1 specifically. But even then, that's not really so much of a problem because you have 2 stuns up front and then you have Arbalest spamming bandage, so you can kind of stall while you wear down whatever's left. Especially when you consider the fact that if it's like a size 2 or just some really strong frontline bruiser, you can hit them with Weakening Curse while Man-at-Arms spams guard, so they're doing no damage against someone that has 60 or even 80 protection. What team discussion video would be complete without mentioning Jestal? For those unaware, Jestal is the nickname given to Jester and Vestal, which is a very common backline pair that people gravitate towards, especially early on in their Darkest Dungeon careers. And sometimes you hear this negative stigma about it, but that's honestly not so much to talk about that it's garbage. It's the fact that Jestal is really consistent in terms of recovery, that since a lot of people just gravitate towards it, they don't usually learn to build other teams, so it kind of gets that negative connotation from that instead. And that doesn't mean that you're bad for running it or that it's a bad duo between the two of them. Quite the contrary, actually. Many people still bust it out, even good players, when they feel they need to. With that said, the final trio of this video is going to be Vestal, Jester, and Shieldbreaker. Yes, I understand that Shieldbreaker is DLC, and you can throw someone like Hellion or Leper up there and they'll do just fine, but honestly, Shieldbreaker completes this pretty well compared to other heroes. The specific reason that I include Shieldbreaker is because this team with Vestal and Jester, they kind of struggle with doing damage to rank 4 besides Vestal herself, which doesn't really do great damage. And since the two of them occupy the back of your party, that means that whoever's up front has to be able to hit rank 4 consistently. So because of that, Shieldbreaker comes in and actually completes this because she's able to use something like Puncture to pull someone out of the back up front, which diminishes the need of your front line to also have reach instead. The strength of running Jestal as a pair is the fact that they have the highest recovery output in the entire game. The issue with running Jestal is that they clog up your backline with 2 heroes that don't like to be moved out of position, and to make the most out of this recovery, you have to slow the game down, so either stuns or stalling are recommended. But if you're fine with a slower than normal playstyle and you have Shieldbreaker, then all you really need to do is just throw pretty much anyone that can do a bit of damage up front with her, and then you're fine. My immediate recommendations are Leper or Highwayman. Leper has the added benefit of being very tanky himself with his own great self-heal, and since you have so much recovery on this team, he's not as needed, or required I should say, to do his things like Intimidate or Withstand. Then you also have the added benefit of Shieldbreaker being much faster than Leper, who can puncture a squishy backliner into Leper for him to chop and kill. Highwayman has the added benefit of having some pretty decent speed himself and good damage, and he also has reach at the same time. Since Vestal is often the only form of stunning on this team, Riposte gets a bit better since it has more actions to counterattack. One more quick thought that I forgot to mention is that you can certainly just run another Shieldbreaker and this team will be fine. The Jestal Shieldbreaker archetype is really good in pretty much any area just because recovery is usually nice to have, and then also you have Shieldbreaker who has Pierce, which gets through pretty much any enemy out there, and then Puncture for backliners. So because of that, since it's so good in pretty much any area you take it to, that means it's actually a really good comp to run for Endless Harvest. There are quite a few teams out there that can make it to the first couple bosses in Farmstead, and that's fantastic, but a lot of the time, if you see super deep runs from people that aren't, on the caliber of someone like Thick, you're going to see this comp. You're going to see Jestal and Shieldbreaker. Alright, all that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy these types of videos, let me know. Give me the thumbs up, comments, all that stuff. If there are any other aspects of team building that you want me to cover in the 3 weeks we have left until Darkest Dungeon 2, let me know and I'll try and get to it. But I've been getting a lot of video suggestions and they're all, for the most part, fantastic. It's just that I'm running out of time, so I need to do the things I need to do first, and then we'll see what happens afterwards. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Like I said, if you enjoy the video, all that normal stuff, check out the description box for all the cool links, and then stay tuned for other stuff like the Occultist Guide, which I'm writing right now, so we'll see what happens with that. And then the final part of the tier list will probably be next week or the week after. I'm not sure yet. Still finalizing it, but yeah, that's neither here nor there. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.